Hey everyone, and welcome. Here at the Sharif Center, we're always digging into these really complex systems. But what we find, time and again, is that the most mind-bending behaviors, well, they're actually built on some pretty simple foundations. So today, we're going to go back to basics, but in a really important way. We're talking about the elegant, powerful structure of stocks and flows. And let me tell you, getting a solid grip on these isn't just about the fundamentals. It's absolutely essential if you want to master system dynamics.
So let me ask you this. What do a skunk population, a landfill, and your bank account all have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup for a really weird joke, right? But the answer is actually pretty profound. It points to a universal structure, a kind of hidden logic that explains how all sorts of systems change over time. Stick with me, because by the end of our chat today, you're going to see exactly how these completely different things are connected.
All right, so to really get into this, we first need a way to see what a system looks like at any given moment. And the best way to wrap your head around this concept is to think of it like taking a photograph, just a snapshot that freezes everything right where it is.
And this quote here, it really nails it. Stocks are what you'd see in that snapshot. It's any accumulation you can count or measure at one specific point in time. Think about it. The amount of water in a bathtub right now. The number of books on your shelf at this very moment. The exact amount of money in your bank account. All of those, they're stocks.
Okay, so let's get a little more formal with this. A stock is basically an accumulation. It's like the system's memory. It tells you the condition of the system. Let's go back to that bathtub example. The water level doesn't just magically appear, right? It rises and falls because of what's happened before, turning the tap on, pulling the plug. That accumulated water is the stock. And this is so important because stocks are what give a system its inertia. It takes time to fill that tub, and it takes time to empty it. You can't just snap your fingers and change the water level. That gradual change is a key property of stocks.
Okay, so if the stock is the state of the system, the water level, then what changes it? Well, that's where flows come in. Sticking with our bathtub, the water pouring in from the faucet, that's your inflow. And the water swirling down the drain, that's your outflow. So flows are the actions, the rates of change that actually make the system dynamic.
And this difference between them, it's simple, but it's also really profound. Let's break it down. A stock is a quantity you measure at one point in time. It's the system's memory. It's a noun like skunk population. A flow, though, is a rate measured over a period of time. It's the system's activity. It's a verb like births or deaths. I love this way of thinking about it. Stocks are about being, and flows are about becoming.
All right, enough with the theory, right? Theory's great, but let's get our hands dirty and see how this actually works in the real world. We're going to start with a pretty simple ecological model.
Okay, so here's the setup. Picture this. You've got a population of 500 skunks living near a highway. And every single year, 100 new skunks are born. That's our inflow. At the same time, 120 die, which is our outflow. For now, we'll keep it simple and say these numbers are constant, which makes it a really straightforward model to build. So how do we model this? It's a really simple three-step process. First, what are we measuring? What's the accumulation? That's our stock, the skunk population. Easy enough. Step 2, what's adding to it? The births, of course. That's our inflow. And finally, step 3, what's taking away from it? The deaths. That's our outflow. And boom, you've got it. Stock, inflow, outflow. That is the fundamental structure. And once we have this simple structure, this is where the magic happens. We can start asking questions about the future. So, given these rates, what do you think? Where is this population headed? What will it be in 10 years?
The answer is 300 skunks. It's pretty simple math when you lay it out like this. You have 100 coming in, but 120 going out each year. So you're losing a net of 20 skunks a year. Over 10 years, that's 200 skunks gone from our starting population of 500. It's a perfect, simple example of how this stock and flow model lets us see into the future of a system.
Okay, let's look at another example. This one has a slightly different setup, but it's a pattern you'll see all over the place. All right, this time I want you to imagine a brand new landfill opening up in Boise. It starts completely empty, but every single day, 5,000 gallons of plastics get dumped into it. Now here's the key part. For our model, we're going to assume that over the next 20 years, pretty much none of that plastic breaks down. In other words, there is no outflow.
Building this model is, well, it's even easier. Our stock is the plastics in landfills. Our inflow is the dumping process. But do you notice what's missing? Right, there's no outflow. This is what we call a pure accumulation system. And this pattern is behind so many of our most stubborn, persistent problems. Think about things like carbon in the atmosphere or even national debt.
So what happens when you have a steady inflow day after day and nothing going out? What does that mountain of plastic look like after 20 years?
It's a staggering number. 36.5 million gallons. 36.5 million. That right there is the power of an unopposed inflow. It just goes to show how a daily flow that might seem manageable can, over time, build up into a stock that is just overwhelming.
So we've looked at skunks, we've looked at a landfill. These aren't just random stories. They're both pointing to the same fundamental pattern, a universal building block for how we think about, well, pretty much any system.
And that brings us all the way back to the question I asked at the very beginning. Now that we have these tools, we can finally see the deep connection hiding in plain sight.
So what do they have in common? It's their structure. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if you're talking about money in your bank account, where your inflow is the inflow and expenses are the outflow, or something as huge as nuclear weapons, with building them as an inflow and disarming them as an outflow. The fundamental logic is exactly the same. You've always got a stock that's being changed by flows.
And really, this is what I want you to walk away with. Stocks and flows are like the fundamental grammar of system dynamics. You can think of it this way. Just like you need nouns and verbs to make a sentence, you need stocks and flows to describe the behavior of any system that changes over time. Getting this down isn't just a good first step, it's the most critical step.
So this simple structure, it's the building block for literally everything else we study. Which of course leads us to the really big question in system dynamics. What happens when these simple pieces start influencing each other? What if the size of the stock starts to control the rate of its own flows? What happens when they connect and create feedback loops? Because that is where things get truly interesting, where all the complex, nonlinear behavior comes from. And that's exactly what we'll dive into next time.